Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes for Wednesday, August 23rd. 5 after 5 in the morning. Kettle on the boil as always. Yeah, another day here in Padang, though I'm not going to spend the whole day here because what I've wanted to do recently is ride my scooter a little bit farther down the coast. So I've gone on scooter trips along the ocean road to the south several times already, and each time I extended the trip by a little bit to check out a new place along the way, and then I'd reach the place I wanted to see, and then at the end of the day I'd turn around and ride all the way back here to the Wisma Rumah Kita. I'm quite comfortable here and I really like this neighborhood in Padang. I never run out of places to check out. I feel a bit bad because I haven't recorded a lot of my daily activities on video, and those may be the most interesting things, but once I'm finished with, you know, the actual event of the day, getting on the scooter, going here, exploring, taking all the video, coming back, you know, then I'm having lunch or dinner or snacks and exploring this neighborhood, and all of that kind of falls by the wayside. So for example, I discovered this new street. I wish I'd known it was there earlier, just a couple of streets over, and it's full of all kinds of restaurants that, you know, I really like that style of restaurant, and I'd struggled a little bit looking for food in this area. And then I found that street, and I've been working my way down the street, eating in this place, then this place, then this place, then this place, and even going back to the same place a couple of times. And then I'm getting snacks from all these local food sellers at the side of the road. And right beside this hostel, there's a house, and I'm not sure what their schedule is. Like I've always talked about, I never have any clue when things are open and when they're not open here in Indonesia. Anyway, this house occasionally turns into a Satay Padang restaurant. And once I discovered that, I was like, yes, because I really like Satay Padang. And so I've been eating there quite often, and I haven't been I haven't shot any video about that experience. And I guess there are I haven't tried it yet, but there are two places in this neighborhood that are famous for their durian ice cream. And I keep intending to go there to try their durian ice cream. And I haven't done it yet because I think, well, if you're going to do this, you should capture the experience on video. But every time I've walked by one of these places, it's been at a time when I've been filming all day long, and I didn't bring my cameras with me, you know, so I don't even go in. I want to try the durian ice cream that day, but then I don't go in because I think, well, I'm going to reserve that experience for a, you know, Planet Doug video event. And then I've never gotten around to actually going back there. And again, mainly because in the back of my mind, I'm always aware of just how long it takes me to edit video. Shooting video, I can shoot video all day long, all night long, no big deal. But shooting video about your durian ice cream experience is one thing that only takes as long as eating the ice cream. You know, even if you wanted to film longer, you can't because the eating of the ice cream is over. But then you're stuck with all the video, and then you're editing it, and you know, it's a time investment. And I haven't been able to get around to all the video that I shot back in Bukit Tinggi. So I'm still working on the video when I rode the scooter to Lake Maninjau. Then after that, I have the Harau Valley. Then I have so many things that I did. And I have a bit of a backlog of video. And then all the video that I've shot here, because I've been shooting video almost every day. Not quite every day, but almost. So it's like a game of catch up, and I never am able to catch up. Anyway, I think I started off on that tangent because I was saying how much I like this neighborhood, because there's so much still to do and to explore. There's just, yeah, I could stay in Padang for a month and not run out of things, for me personally, that I would like to do or experience. Another month in Padang, of course, is not designed to appeal to a YouTube audience. You know, they like it when you go to new places all the time, but I have the opposite personality. I like to go to a new place and settle in there for a while. Even if I don't plan on doing it, that's what I often end up doing without planning to do it. Anyway, today is going to be a little bit different because, as I said, I've been extending my trips down the coast farther and farther, and each time I do that, it takes longer to come back. And the next place I wanted to go is just far enough away that I thought, well, after taking a good chunk of the day to get there, stopping off on the beaches all along the way, maybe lookout points. I don't know what's on the way. That's why I go. I want to find out. But it's going to be a long enough day to get to where I want to go that it would be, you know, a long ride back to Padang at the end of probably a tiring day. Also, the later in the day you get, the greater the risk becomes of one of those massive thunderstorms arriving. So I decided that instead of riding out and then back, this time I'm going to ride out and then find a place to stay. And I'm pretty happy with my choice. It turns out there's a little town down there. It's actually a shout out to Wander Eats YouTube channel, because Daryl from Wander Eats, he's the one who told me about it. I was chatting with him about my plans and how I'm looking for a place to stay. But most of the guest houses like that are on the ocean in the beautiful area that I want to visit. Of course, they tend to be expensive, and they're so expensive that it makes more sense for me to ride all the way back here to Padang, you know, spend, you know, 20,000 rupiah in gas so that I can save 1,000,000 rupiah by staying in a nice little hostel like this, a cheaper place. But then what I didn't realize is that just beyond that point, there's a little town called Painan, P-A-I-N-A-N. Looks like a nice little town, right? Really interesting place. And Daryl tracked down a very inexpensive guest house there, a homestay they call it, that comes with a really strong reputation, you know, like 9.2 on Agoda kind of thing. It's very rare for a budget option to get such a high rating. It just sounds like a great little place. I love the look of the town, so I thought, okay, you know, the stars have aligned, so I'm packed up now. And then this morning I'm going to just load up the scooter and ride down the coast, have a regular day visiting these places, and then I'm going to stay at this homestay in Painan and stay there for a few days. So that is the plan for today, and the plan for right now is to drink coffee. And since I'm leaving Padang today, yesterday turned into more of a logistics kind of day. Just, you know, things happen over time when you're going out every day and exploring, shooting video, going to new places, new experiences. You know, some things in your life they fall by the wayside. Things like laundry, just taking care of yourself and stuff like that. So I had to deal with a few things, and one of the things I needed to deal with was getting my smartphone situation sorted out, because as I've talked about, feels like endlessly, they have this system in Indonesia which I still don't understand at all. I can't get a clear answer about, because I get different information from everyone I'm talked to about when you come into the country and you get a SIM card as a tourist, your phone gets registered with Indonesian customs using the IMEI, you know, the IMEI number that identifies that phone. And then there's a time limit on how long you can use that phone in Indonesia. And when that time limit is up, customs uses their technology magic in combination with the mobile internet providers to cut you off. And that phone is cut off. So basically, I've been going through all of my phones. I have 3 of them, and one by one, they're being cut off, and I can no longer use them. So yesterday morning, I woke up with no access to the mobile internet, and I thought about just living without it. But it's not a good idea. I need to communicate with people, and I have a rented scooter. I have friends of mine who are sort of following my activities. And if I head out like today, for example, I will be in a relatively remote area, not really remote, but still, away from the main road. And I don't know what the road conditions are going to be like, to be honest. And I'm out there on the scooter. And then what if the scooter breaks down, or I have a minor crash or something? Well, it would be nice to be able to get onto WhatsApp and contact people that I know and somehow, get things figured out. So you kind of need access to the mobile internet and, booking rooms, and eventually when it comes time to leave the country and making arrangements. And yeah, living without the internet just makes your life unnecessarily difficult. So I decided, okay, let's get this figured out. And the one option I had was to use my Malaysian SIM card, which, again, is kind of interesting. Well, this is my theory anyway. The phone is blocked in Indonesia, but if I turn on roaming for my Malaysian SIM card using the same phone, it would still work, because now I'm using a Malaysian mobile internet provider, not a local one. That I never got to the point where I could test that theory, but I figured, yeah, I could just use roaming, even though the phone is blocked physically inside Indonesia. I should still be able to use roaming. And in fact, I looked into it, and roaming is relatively expensive, but when I did the math, might even be cheaper for me than using local internet, because I have to buy a new SIM card, a new data package, and I use up a lot of data normally. So by the time I'm finished paying for all the data, it works out to the same as buying unlimited roaming for 30 days from Digi in Malaysia. It was cheaper to go the Malaysian roaming route for me. So I thought, okay, let's do that. And I've been struggling a little bit with that, because in order to do that, I have to put money on my Digi account. And the only way to do that, for me, is to transfer money from my Malaysian Touch and Go eWallet. And to figure out how to do that was complicated, because I had to enter my phone number into Digi. It says, okay, what is your Touch and Go phone number? But for me, that always gets really complicated, because my phone number keeps changing. Every time I went into Malaysia, I would get a new SIM card with a new phone number. And then if I sign up for Touch and Go eWallet, I use the phone number I'm using on that visit. That becomes my phone number for Touch and Go eWallet. But then that SIM card got lost and unused. And the next time I came into Malaysia, I got a new SIM card. So I have a new phone number. So I've got my actual phone number that I'm using right now is different from the phone number I used when I set up Touch and Go. Like every single app I have on my phone, you input the phone number you're using at the time. And if your phone number changes every time you go to a new country, you've got this long history of phone numbers going back years. You don't know what they are anymore. You have no idea what phone number you were using at that time. So it gets very confusing. So Digi was asking me for my Touch and Go phone number, and I didn't know what it was. So I thought, well, I'll have to go into my profile on Touch and Go, and somehow it must be listed somewhere. But then I couldn't get into Touch and Go because the security question system wouldn't let me in. That's a whole other long story. So I haven't been able to even figure out what phone number to use. So that drove me crazy for a while. I got that sorted out, and then I finally found the phone number for Touch and Go that I used, and I put that into Digi, and then things were moving ahead. And then I tried to transfer. I have to reload Digi, transfer money from Touch and Go to Digi, and then you go through the whole process. And then there's a button at the bottom, confirm, pay now, whatever it said. Hit that button. Nothing happened. The screen just sits there. You don't get, any kind of a confirmation that, we are now processing your payment or anything. You just hit that button and nothing changes on the screen. You can sort of hit it as many times as you want, nothing happens. So that was kind of a dead end, though oddly enough, after a while I had to get off that screen. I can't sit on that screen forever because you can't get past it. I was frozen, stuck on that screen. So eventually I hit the back button, to back out of it. And then I got a message that says, oh, if you do this, you will be canceling your transaction. So I thought, oh, well, I don't want to cancel it. So I canceled the cancel, stayed on that screen for as long as I could, but eventually I had to exit it. So finally I hit back and said, you're canceling the transaction. I said, well, okay, cancel. And then as soon as I hit cancel, I got a ding on my phone, and I got a message, an email from Digi that said, oh, we have received your, transfer of funds, and we are processing your payment. It said we are processing the payment from your bank. Of course, I wasn't using a bank. I was using Touch and Go, but they said your bank. And then I thought, oh, okay, so it's actually working, and we just have to wait for a little while. And then maybe an hour and a half later, ding, I got another email that said payment failed. The reason payment failed, and then it says underneath reason payment failed. So the reason payment failed was that payment failed. So anyway, roaming, I wasn't even able to test it because I wasn't able to put money on my Digi account. There was no way for me to get money on it. So that was a dead end. And with that experience, I thought, okay, this morning, let's go to Telekomsel and let's get another SIM card, and I can register my third phone. I have 3 phones. 2 of them have been blocked, and then the third one I've never used in Indonesia. So I can register it with customs, and that will give me 90 days to use that phone. And that will be enough to cover the 30 days, the 23 days I have left in Indonesia. So I went on my scooter, rode across town to the big Grapari office for Telekomsel. These are amazing places. They almost, I guess they make a lot of money that they can afford offices like this. But they also need them because one thing I've seen about the mobile internet industry in Indonesia is it's complicated. As I've talked about in the past, when I breezed through the airport in Kuala Lumpur, you pass by the Digi desk at the airport, you're getting a SIM card in less than 2 minutes. It's so fast and efficient. You just tell the guy you need a SIM card, give him your phone, he takes a picture of your passport, and then before you can blink, he hands your phone back to you and you're ready to go. You're connected, you've got a SIM card. Not so in Indonesia. You even go to the main office where they have the best systems, the highly trained staff, and nice computers, everything works perfectly. You'll be there for a long time getting your SIM card set up. And the weird thing is you don't really have to do anything. I go in, this is just like getting a SIM card from scratch, your very first one. And then you sit down in these very comfortable chairs. This one here had 2 levels. They had their own parking garage underneath, where like underground parking for your scooter. They directed you there, and I parked my scooter. Wow, this is nice. And then you just go up the stairs, and there's a first floor, nicely decorated, comfortable furniture, open and spacious and air conditioned. And then a lovely young woman comes up to you with a tablet and, welcome to Telekomsel, sir, and what can we do for you today? And she takes all my information. She's basically pre-screening me for the actual work. She basically asks me for all my information, my name, why I'm there, what they can do for me. She puts all that into her tablet, saves it, and that issues a queue number because this place gets very busy. And then this is, okay, your queue number is G33. You may now go to the 2nd floor. She's like doing all these gestures very elegantly, this way, sir, up the stairs to the 2nd floor. G33. So I go up there, and it's another cavernous room. It looks like you're in someone's large living room, because the women doing all the work, again, they were all women, they're sitting on living room lounge chairs with a little coffee table in front of them. And there's another comfortable, easy chair opposite them, and that's where the customers sit. It does not look bureaucratic. It does not look, it looks friendly. It looks warm. It looks inviting. And everyone speaks English extremely well. And I got served right away, which I was very lucky, because I got there just in time. By the time I left, the place was jammed with people. So there would have been a long waiting period. But I got there when it was relatively empty. So yeah, I went up to where, the woman came up to me. It said, the number system said, okay, now serving G33, please go to counter 6. And of course, there are no counters. It's not counter 6. It's, lounge chair. It's like living room, soft, comfy chair number 6. And before I'd even had time to register, the woman came up to get me and says, oh, sir, come with me. And, unbelievable service. And I being a dummy, I often do these weird, chatty conversations, because I want to establish a friendly relationship with people in offices. And then as we went up to her work area, I says, wow, this is like being in my own living room. It's like we're sitting inside a nice, I'm trying to compliment them on the design of their workspace. And she's like, yes, sir, yes. It's just agreeing with me. And it's like, oh, what is a foreigner talking about? Anyway, we sat down, and then I had kind of a decision to make. And in the end, I made the right one, but I wasn't sure, because, as I said, I've got this phone number 3. And my philosophy in life is to keep things simple. Don't complicate matters unnecessarily. So I've got this big history with all my other phones. Like every phone, my 2 other phones, each one already has a Telekomsel SIM card in it, and their SIM cards are still valid. On my most recent one, the SIM card looks fine. It says, it's valid for months. It still has credit on it. I have money on it. I have 16 gigabytes of data still in my account. Everything looks fine. The problem is the phone is blocked. So that's my situation. But I don't think that can be fixed. I tried to fix it in Bukitingi, and they basically said there's nothing we can do with those. Those phones have been blocked, and the SIM card that was in the phone at the time has also been blocked. You're done. There's nothing you can do. So my only option is to come in with a new phone. And so I went up to this woman here and said, okay, what I need to do is I'd like to get well, she said it to me. She says, oh, you're a tourist? Yes. And you need to get register she said, you need to register the email of your phone and get a SIM card? And I says, yes. And okay, that's what I need to do for this phone. I hand over this phone and my passport, and then I can just sit back for like an hour, because it takes them a long time to do this, and let them work. That would have been the simple thing to do. And that was my plan. But I wanted to let them know about how much trouble this email system is causing people like me. So I did think, oh, maybe I should bring this up. And I did bring up my main phone, the one that was just blocked, and she said to me, okay, you want to get a SIM card for this phone? And I said, yes. And then I kind of went, well, yes, that's what I want to do. However, if it's possible, I told her, okay, I've got this phone, and I have a Telkomsel SIM in this phone. If I could continue to use this one, that would be better, because I have data and I have credit and the SIM card is still valid. And I told her about how I tried in the past to move the SIM card from this phone to a different phone, and it doesn't work. And I was kind of asking her, says, yeah, well, I think I have to get a new SIM card because this phone is blocked, right? And I kept asking her for confirmation, like that's how the system works, right? There's nothing I can do with this phone, isn't that correct? And she sort of looked at me like she had no idea what I was talking about. So I was trying to get a sense from her that she was even aware of the trouble the email business is causing, the time limit. But I wasn't seeing any reaction in her face at all. Like, she didn't seem to be latching on to anything I was saying. But I guess something got through because she started looking at my passport really carefully. And this was a really interesting angle to this whole interaction, because it was so different from what happened in Bukittinggi. I went to the Grapari office of Telkomsel in Bukittinggi to do all the same thing. And I got completely different answers in Bukittinggi than I got here in Padang. But this woman was looking at my passport very carefully. And it was kind of funny because she was looking at my visa stamps for this visit to Indonesia. And she's holding, she says, okay, so you entered Indonesia on this date, is that right? And I was like, well, if you say so, you're holding my passport. I don't have these dates in my head. So I took the passport from her and I'm looking at the visa stamp, the visa on arrival, and I'm like, yeah, that looks to be correct. And she took my passport back and says, okay, so and then you did this, you got a extension on your visa on this date? And I'm like, again, if you say so, like you're the one looking at all the stamps in my passport. I don't have these dates in my head. But she had to enter all these dates and get them straight in her head, I guess. And she asked me a lot of questions, and she was flipping through all the pages of my passport. And then she saw a previous stamp. And I was explaining to her, again, I was trying to get across all of my problems with SIM cards, and said, well, I visited Indonesia 3 times, and each time I have to get a new phone. Like on my first trip, I used this phone, but now on my second trip it was blocked, so I had to use this phone. This is, on the second trip, now it's blocked, and now third trip I have to use this phone. And I'm trying to get this across to her, and she's thinking this through, and then she says, oh, so where did you go? And I said, well, I went to Malaysia. And she said, well, how long were you there? And I said, I was in Malaysia for about 3 months. She says, oh, so you were in Indonesia, and she was getting this whole history from me. You were in Indonesia, and you got the SIM card, but then you went to another country. And I said, well, yeah, of course. Your visa expires. You have to go to another country. It's not like you have a choice in the matter. She says, oh, so you went to another country, and then you came back to Indonesia. And I said, yes, that's what I did. This has not come up before at Telekomsel, so I was wondering why this was a deal. And she says, oh, well, because you went to another country, I can give you another 90 days on your old phone. And I was like, really? Oh, okay, well, let's do that then. So in Bukittinggi, this never came up, and they said, no, there's nothing we can do. Because I told them, when I was doing all my own research into this, the official government website, as they write out the policy, is you can get 90 days, and then you can extend it for an additional 90 days. And when I told them that at Bukittinggi, they looked into it, and they basically said, no, we can't do that. You're done. You're done at 90 days. They said something about maybe it could be possible, but they said I'd have to go to the customs office at the airport in Jakarta in order to even find out if this was possible. So clearly I couldn't do that. So anyway, I was under the impression that this whole 90-day extension business was not true. But now in Padang, once she found out that I'd been to another country, then suddenly it opened up all these opportunities. And she says, yeah, well, you can do it 2 times. For every phone, you can do it on your first visit, you get 90 days. And then if you leave Indonesia and come back, If you go to another country, then you can do it for another 90 days. So, an hour later, I swear it took an hour, she finally finished doing it. And then she handed my phone back to me, and there was no charge for this. I didn't have to pay anything extra because I already had a SIM card. I had data, I had credit. You know, the problem was the phone was blocked. And then she did all this stuff on her computer. And then she handed the phone back to me and said, well, in like 30 minutes, this was important. She said, in 30 minutes, reset your phone, you know, turn it off and turn it back on again. And then you should be connected to the Telekomsel network. And the funny thing is, when I was in Bukit I managed, that's such a complicated story, but I did manage to get a 30-day extension because out of my 90 days, I had only used up 60, apparently. So I had 30 days left on my original 90, and at Bukit they says, okay, well, we can do that for you. We can give you another 30 days. And they said, they handed the phone back to me and says, okay, in 30 minutes, you will be able to connect. So I took my phone and you know, the whole rest of the day, I kept checking my phone like, oh, still no connection. Nope. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting way past 30 minutes and it never ever connected. And I thought, oh, it's not going to work. But then it occurred to me, oh, why don't I try resetting my phone? And I turned it on. You know, I restarted my phone and then it clicked and I connected. So it's interesting that in Bukit like those little details are so important, but they didn't tell me that I had to reboot my phone in order for the changes to take effect. Here in Padang, they seem to have been better trained. They know the system a little bit better. And she told me, okay, you have to restart your phone after 30 minutes and then you should be connected. And I did that after 30 minutes and boom, I was connected. But I have to say, I really would like to see their computer screen when they're doing this, because she wasn't registering a new SIM card. It was my old account. So my name, my passport number, any information, the phone number, the SIM card details, everything was already in their computer. And even the original SIM card, they didn't need my, you know, address in Canada. They didn't need my address in Indonesia. There was none of that information needed to be entered. So relatively small amount of information. Passport number, photo. That's all they need, and name. That's all they need from me. So why does it take them an hour of typing on their computer to finish the transaction? Like, what are they doing all that time? I kind of feel sorry for them. And it's not just on this woman. Every staff member, they had a really nice, to me, it looked like really nice IBM ThinkPad laptops. They all had matching ThinkPads. And I don't know why, there's always something about a ThinkPad that just looks luxurious and powerful to me. I'm like, oh, you're using a ThinkPad. You know, I don't know why. Maybe their marketing worked on me ages ago. And I had this image of the ThinkPad being like a powerful business machine. You know, if you're using a ThinkPad, that means you're serious. They're all using these ThinkPads. And then she's typing away on that, but she also has to use a phone. So she's holding a phone in one hand and then typing, and then on her phone, and then back on her keyboard, then back on this phone. And I don't know what she's doing, but it takes a long time and so much typing. Like, what could she possibly be typing? As I said, she's not entering my addresses anywhere, no data about me. Everything is already in there, and yet she was typing and typing and typing, and screen after screen after screen, and then back on her phone again, and then back there. And I was just kicking back in my living room chair. I could have taken a nap. You know, I was getting so comfortable. It's like she's doing all the work. But man, couldn't believe how much typing was involved. And then, you know, eventually the furious pace of typing stopped, and she handed my phone back to me and said, there you are, sir. You're all set up. So yeah, my phone is working, and I get to use the credit I had before and the 16 gigabytes of data that I already had. So yeah, that was pretty successful. It's a very annoying that you have to go through all this just to stay connected to the internet here. But yeah, can't complain about their service. And I was thinking about the differences between the two different offices. Same company, same level of office in Bukit Tinggi and Padang. And I think there's a very interesting difference, kind of on a theoretical level, about how offices run. Because the woman in Padang, she seemed to have more authority to make decisions herself. She never had to confer with anyone else. I gave her all the information I could. She had all the first-hand knowledge, and she had the authority to do things, so she just did them. But in Bukit Tinggi, the woman there, the clerk, every time there was a question about whether this could or couldn't be done, she had to get up from her desk, go to a back office, and get permission from her supervisor. That's what she told me. She says, oh, I have to ask, my supervisor, if, to get permission to do this. So the problem there is information gets lost, right? I'm talking to the woman here in Padang in English, and of course I'm babbling, and I'm probably telling her things she didn't need to know and leaving out things she does need to know. But by the time the dust settles, she probably has in her brain 60% of the information that I conveyed to her. And that was enough for her to get the job done. But in Bukit Tinggi, I talked to the woman, so she has 60% of the information that I've given to her in her head. But then she goes back to the office to talk to her supervisor, a guy, a manager who's very busy doing other things, listening with only a part of his brain. And then she tells him about what's going on, and of course she conveys like 10% of the information. She can't give him everything, so she just sort of conveys like 10%, like, okay, can we extend their email registration? And the guy's only getting 10% of the information, and he just says no, can't. And then she goes back and says to me, no, can't, right? But maybe yes, can. But because she had to go get up, she has to send the decision up the chain of command, and at every stage, the amount of information being transferred gets reduced, and it finally gets to the top, and then the manager, supervisor, doesn't have the whole picture, and then basically says, no, can't do that. And then it comes back down the chain. Here in Padang, she had the power. She didn't have to go confer with anyone. She didn't have to get permission from her supervisor or manager. She could just do everything herself. And once she had all the information, say, oh, so you left Indonesia, you went to another country. And I'm like, well, yeah. Obviously, I thought that would have been pretty obvious from the start. But in her mind, the fact that I'd gone to another country changed everything. It's like, oh, okay, because you went to another country, now I can do this for you. And she seemed to have the authority just to do anything she wanted, based on the rules. She can give me another 90 days now that she knows I went to another country. And of course, that kind of confused me, because as I said to her, well, you're dealing with tourists, right? This whole email thing only applies to tourists, right? Or maybe all, no, I guess it doesn't. It applies to all phones that were purchased outside of Indonesia, basically, whether you work here, live here, or are a tourist. So I guess then from that point of view, it does make a little bit of sense, because I was thinking, how could I not have gone to another country? I'm a tourist. You get 30 days on a normal tourist visa, and then when your tourist visa expires, well, you leave, you go to another country. So obviously I've gone to another country. So I don't know why this would come as such a surprise to her. It's like, oh, you went to another country. Like, well, yeah, of course. Anyway, long story, but I now am connected to mobile internet once again. Though, to be honest, I didn't get everything I wanted. I didn't want to push my luck. As I said, I like to keep things simple. but I'm only going to be in Indonesia 30 days this time from today, like not even 30 days, like 23 days now, something like that. So I wanted to say to her in the middle of all this, well, okay, you're extending, you're giving me another 90 days, but does that mean 90 days of time, just like starting now, and at the end of 90 days, boom, blocked again? Or is it 90 days inside Indonesia that the clock stops ticking when I leave the country? So in theory, I have no plans to do so, but in theory, if I left Indonesia again, came back again, would I now have 60 days? I could start all over again with another 60 days, you know. So, yeah, but I didn't want to complicate matters. She was working, she was setting me up with mobile internet, and that's all I cared about. So it's like, okay, don't stick your oar in the water. Don't complicate things. Just let her do her thing, and we'll see what happens at the end of it, you know. So anyway, that was the end of that story. I was very happy when the dust settled, and I was able to, when I left, as I said, I was so happy when I stood up from my comfortable chair and I turned around to leave, and the office was jammed with people. Everything was taken, every chair. The waiting area was so full. And I can understand why it would take a long time there, because my transaction took at least an hour. And if every other person seemed to be going through the same, like these are all Indonesians. I was the only foreigner there. They were all Indonesians doing something with their Telkomsel account. And whatever they were doing took just as long as what I was doing. So I think every customer interaction, if every single one takes an hour to complete, can you imagine how long it would take to get through that many customers? And yeah, Telekomsel offices can be so busy because of that. Yeah, you have to set aside some time when you go there. There isn't much else to say about the world of Planet Doug right now. As I said, I'm getting on the scooter today. I'm all packed up. Gonna head down the coast, spend a day on the scooter exploring, shooting video, of course, and then I'm gonna end up in this town of Painan, spend a few days there. I'll use that as a base to explore that area. And then I'm trying to make I don't need to make an immediate decision, but I'm thinking about how to get from Bukittinggi. Like eventually I have to bring the scooter back to Bukittinggi, drop it off there, get reunited with my bicycle. But I have to decide whether I want to ride my bike back to Dumai or not. And there's a couple of reasons to go one way or the other. Of course I want to. That would feel the best. I would enjoy it, assuming I had trouble with my knees my last time doing this, once I started cycling again, and I'll just have to take it really slow and easy, I guess, and ease into the cycling. It would take like 10 or 11 days total to do the ride at my pace, because I wouldn't cover a lot of distance each day. I know exactly where I would spend the night each night, and then rest up a day here, a day there. So I'd want to set aside 10 or 11 days for the bike ride. Or I can use those 10 or 11 days to do something else and then take a bus. So I think there's a possibility of taking a bus all the way from Bukittinggi to Dumai. And of course I want to go to Dumai because that's where I will catch the ferry to go across to Malaysia, which is the more, assuming I want to bring my bicycle back to Malaysia with me, to me that's just the more interesting way to go and the easier way to go. Of course, if I leave my bicycle behind in Sumatra, then makes life a lot easier. I can just hop on a flight, right? Then it's a lot easier to fly. But I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the bike yet, like moving into the future, whether I want to keep it in my life or continue cycling in any way or not. Yeah, a lot of that is unclear. But at this point, I would like to take my bike back to Malaysia, kind of delay the time when I have to make a decision about it. And so it's either ride my bike to Dumai or put it on top of a bus. And I really don't want to go the bus route. If, you know, on the one hand, you know, you might think, oh, it's so much easier, but man, taking a bus that far, that, you know, going to the bus station, making the arrangements, packing for that trip, putting your bike on the top of the bus, sitting on a bus for 10, 11 hours. I mean, that's just brutal. It's not as easy as you would think. Like you try to compare, like 10 days riding the bike versus one bus trip. It feels like the bus trip is far easier, but it really isn't the way it breaks down. In some ways, riding your bike for 10 days can be easier because it's just more interesting and you're in control of your own environment. And there's something about bicycles, they're so efficient and they're such beautiful machines when you use them the way they're meant to be used, you know, riding down the road. But as soon as you try and take that elegant road machine and put it onto an airplane, put it onto a bus, put it onto a ferry, then it becomes very awkward and very unwieldy. It's like in my lifetime, 90%, I think, of the damage that has happened to my bike has happened when you put the bike on a bus or on a truck or on a train or on a plane. That's when all the damage occurs, because bikes just aren't designed to be luggage. They're designed to be ridden, you know. Plus, the way I do things, there's no way I could just, the morning that I want to go, just ride my bike to the bus station and then just wander around going, bus to Dumai, bus to Dumai. I can't do that. So I have to go there at least the day before, you know, go down there and find the bus, get information, reserve a seat. Can they find out, can they put my bike on the roof? Is that possible? How much is that going to cost? So I need one whole day just to make the arrangements. And then I probably need a day just to pack up and get my bike ready, because you've got to get it ready for this kind of experience. So you've already looking at 2 days getting ready for the bus trip, and then the bus trip itself, which is like brutal. And then you need a day to recover from them. So it's like 4 days surrounding that 1 day bus ride at least. So it isn't really, you know, 10 days versus 1 day. It's 10 days versus 4 days, you know, and there's so much stress. Things are out of your control when you're, you know, taking a bus. But of course, on the cycling side of the ledger, there is also the traffic of Sumatra, like riding on that road for all those days with all those trucks thundering past. That's no fun at all, but who knows? So I have to make a decision about that. And that's it, I think, for Planet Doug behind the scenes this morning. Yeah, I think I'll end the story there, story of my life. I have been following kind of a new YouTube channel made by a guy called Nick K. That's also the name of his YouTube channel, Nick K. And the only reason I'm following him at the moment is because he's cycling, and he was in Malaysia. He seems to be based in Johor Bahru. I think maybe his girlfriend is from Malaysia, I'm guessing. And then he and his girlfriend went on a bike trip through Taiwan, and I have a personal interest in Taiwan as well, so I watched some of his videos from there. And now he just started cycling in Indonesia, and he posted his first video where he arrived at the airport in Jakarta and then rode his bike. He and his girlfriend, they're together for this trip as well, rode their bicycles from the airport to their Airbnb somewhere in Jakarta. And that first video, I mean, to be honest, there's nothing special about it, about him, or about the way he's recording his trip. You know, he's an upbeat, smiley kind of guy, you know. He's very outgoing and animated, and so from that point of view, you know, his videos are interesting. But I just find it personally interesting because he's cycling and he's in Indonesia. So I just kind of want to see how that works out for him. In my lifetime, getting anywhere near an airport on a bicycle is a major challenge. And he ran into that right away because he and his girlfriend started cycling away from the airport, and then some security guys stopped him because he was on some kind of a highway system, a toll road. And of course, bicycles are not allowed on those roads. And so yeah, these security guys pulled him over and said, nah, they were very friendly about it. They took selfies together and everything, but basically told them, nah, you can't ride your bike on this highway, and kind of helped them. To me, that was the funniest part of the video, the most interesting part, where they're riding along. The security guy said, oh, no, you can't do this because it's too dangerous. So you have to turn around and go back. And they're giving them directions about how to go back and then get off the highway. But of course, for them to go back, they ended up going through this long tunnel against traffic, like huge trucks on all sides of them, rolling their bikes along. And it was far more dangerous to turn around and go through that tunnel against traffic than it would have been just to keep going. You know what I mean? That things like that happen all the time. So, this is way too dangerous. But then they tell them, well, to avoid this dangerous thing, you have to go back and do something else that's far more dangerous, right? But they eventually got off the toll highway, and then they're on the smaller streets. And to be honest, I think the traffic and the situation on the smaller streets is more dangerous than on the toll highway, because at least the big highway system had shoulders. I think there was an area for them to ride. But of course, once you're on the small streets of Java, there's no room for cyclists. So it looked pretty crazy. And the area they were riding through looked just awful. I mean, you're just Jakarta, just an urban setting, nothing interesting about it. And you read, ever since they announced that they're going to be cycling in Indonesia, and in this video itself, I would say at least half of the comments are telling them, don't do it. It's like, okay, you're riding a bike in Indonesia on Java, you're insane. Like, don't do it. It's too dangerous. There's too much pollution. There's too much traffic, too many heavy trucks, And to that list, I would add, depending on where they go, it sounds like they're going to stick to the main roads. So maybe they'll be okay, because they want to go to Bali. And again, I don't know how they're going to do that, like ride their bikes from Jakarta all the way to Bali. And then when they got to the Airbnb in Jakarta, the guy, Nick, said, oh, we're going to stay here for about a week. So I'm like, man, your 30-day visa is already ticking. The clock is ticking. You're going to spend a week at your very first Airbnb in Jakarta. How in the world are you going to get to Bali by bicycle? You won't have enough time. So I'm thinking they have to be sticking on the main roads in order to cover that much distance within the limits of their visa. So then maybe it would be okay. But I mean, if they were riding through more scenic areas, like getting off the beaten path, off the main highways, so where it's more beautiful for cycling, then of course you're in the mountains, and then the roads. That's what I would add to the list. The traffic and the pollution and the noise and the narrowness and everything. I would add the steepness for cycling. I don't think they're carrying as heavy a load as I normally carry, so it may not be as challenging. But for them to go in the more beautiful areas, then they're looking at those steep climbs all the time for cycling. And the roads get steep enough that you have to question whether cycling is even possible or not. So, which is why, of course, today I'm taking a scooter, not a bicycle. Anyway, so that is a Nick K, and I'll follow along on his journey. I haven't been online yet this morning, so I don't know if there's new videos from Itchy Boots or Two Up and Overloaded, or this new couple that I'm following, One Pack Wanderers. Actually, the most recent video from One Pack Wanderers was kind of interesting. The name of it, they're in Vietnam. They're called One Pack Wanderers, this American couple, Tia and Chaveo. And they rented scooters where did they rent them? In Hanoi. They rented scooters, and they're doing some kind of a loop through northern Vietnam. But the latest video was called Everything Went Wrong. And they woke up in the morning expecting to have a very easy day because they were only cycling a short distance from one guest house to another guest house. But it turned out that the road that connected those two guest houses, the road that they were planning to ride on, was through the mountains, and there had been heavy, heavy rains, and there were just landslides and mud everywhere. And they just had a really, really tough day. And I think on that same day, they had she crashed. Tia, the woman, is not the most confident rider, and she went into the mud, and I guess the mud was deeper than she thought, and she went over. She crashed her bike at a very low speed, but she was really shaken up emotionally by the crash, getting covered in mud. Her bike was covered in mud. And then they got to points where there was like landslides right over the road, and the only way to continue on the road was to get their bikes on this like makeshift trail up and over this rocky, landslide that was covering the road and going through deep water, deep mud. I think they had flat tires, and it just went on and on and on. It was a really, really tough day. So tough that at the end of the video, Tia, again, the woman, was in tears for quite a long time, like a very tearful ending to the video, because it was such a difficult day for her. Yeah, actually, I watched the video where they got set up in Hanoi, and I was kind of surprised that they chose the bikes that they chose, because there are two types of scooters. There's scooters like mine. Basically, mine has an automatic transmission, which I like because there's so much to deal with riding on these roads. Just riding a scooter, dealing with traffic, that's enough for me. So I don't need the hassle of changing gears. Like, I don't need something else to think about. So I want an automatic transmission. Just brakes and throttle, brakes and throttle. That's all you have. But they rented these other types that are like semi-automatic transmissions. I don't know how they work, to be honest, but they do have to change gears, as far as I understand it. And you don't engage a clutch when you change gears, but you have to time it with the engine RPMs. So as you increase speed, and you have to make a judgment call. It's like, and then you change gear, and it just sort of changes without engaging a clutch. I'm sure the engine engages the clutch. So it's an automatic clutch, but not an automatic transmission. You still have to change gears. And when they were getting set up, it sounded like she wasn't the strongest rider. So I'm wondering, given that, why did they choose these bikes? Like, why didn't they go for the automatic transmission? It seemed like it would have been better for her. Because even as they rode the scooter away from the rental place, it was very heavy traffic. I think it was raining a little bit, and she stalled the bike. She stalled it a few times out in the middle of traffic because she's trying to change gears, and then she kept stalling the bike. And you could see that she was, struggling with changing gears, and on top of the rain and the traffic and filming video at the same time. That's just too much. So I don't know why they rented those bikes. For her in particular, I would have said, no, get one like mine. And you get a nice platform to put your feet. And there's a platform there to put a knapsack, right down between your feet. It's very convenient. Anyway, seems like a much better design for that kind of trip. But maybe they had a reason for choosing the ones that they did. They might be lighter, these semi-automatics. They look like the frame is smaller, and maybe the bike is lighter than the kind that I have. I don't know. Yeah, they're interesting as YouTubers, I guess. I was looking at their history a little bit. I haven't watched their older videos, but they started just 2 years ago, and their channel is very popular. Their videos are very popular. They're doing a good job, and they've been to Greece, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, Brussels, France, Austria, Hungary, Romania, Greece, Morocco, Dubai, Thailand, Cambodia, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, South Korea, and Hawaii, all in 1 year. That was a 1-year trip. It's pretty crazy. And the second year, Portugal, Spain, Turkey, Japan, Taiwan, Malaysia, Australia, and now Vietnam. So yeah, they do a nice job. They're using DJI Action cameras. I'm not sure if they're the Action 3, I think they must be, or Action 4. And then they have Sony full frame digital cameras, so they mix in some really nice, cinematic B-roll. They have nice graphics and text on the screen, and they fly a drone, so they've got the full YouTube package of, production design and stuff like that. And they're very happy people. They smile a lot. So they're kind of enjoyable as YouTubers. And that is it, I think, for everything that is on my mind this morning to do with the world of Planet Doug and YouTube. So I'm going to shut down, keep packing, and get ready for today's scooter ride down the ocean. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm really glad that I have a nice, what I think is a nice, welcoming homestay waiting for me at the end, so I can just relax for the entire day, and knowing this place is there waiting for me. Very interesting to see what it looks like. We shall see. All right, that's it. I'm shutting down. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning once again, and I'll see you in the next video.